Like each of us, my daily habits, my occupation, and my social identity inform my perception and interpretation of the world around me. The discipline of sociology and the subfields in which I've specialized, social inequality and race and ethnicity, as well as my lived experience as a woman of color, inform these perceptions. For those of you who may be listening only or reading a transcript of this talk, I'm African American and biracial. My complexion, features, and hair are all stamped with recent ancestry from both Europe and Africa. Assumptions by strangers about my education, occupation, and class are regularly revised down because of the powerful history and association between race and class in this country. But when I'm dressed professionally and wearing glasses, assumptions by strangers about my education, occupation, and class are revised up. How do I know this? Because complete strangers tell me what they think I do. Of course, each of us makes quick assumptions about the people around us all the time, but the consequences of our assumptions have very different outcomes depending on our social status. Certain moments are seared into our memories, whether they happened exactly as we remember them or not, because they trigger an emotional response. This is one memory. It was probably 12 or 15 years ago, and I was in line at the grocery store. I don't recall what day of the week it was. I don't recall what time of day it was. Here's what I do remember. A dark brown man, apparently of South Asian descent, and probably in his 20s, approached the register, and the cashier, who was white, said, "That is a lot of cereal. You must have a big family." The customer nodded. The cashier hesitated and said that they weren't sure that many boxes could be purchased at once. The cashier raised her hand and a manager approached. "You can't buy this many boxes of cereal," the manager said. I'm using they, their pronouns to describe the manager and the cashier because I don't remember their genders. I do remember that they appeared to be white. Neither do I remember what I was wearing, but my best guess is that I was dressed professionally, largely because of how I remember the customer in front of me reacting to me. I stood behind an apparently white middle-aged man in the uniform of a painter or house contractor. Well-worn painter's pants, shirt, and work boots were all paint splattered. He had only a few items to check out. In front of him was the apparently South Asian customer in inexpensive trousers and a button-down shirt, with a grocery cart full of many boxes of one brand of cereal. "I didn't see a sign that says there's a limit," the customer responded. The manager left to get a leaflet of the store's specials, while the customer in painter's clothes intervened on behalf of the man in front of him. "Let him buy the cereal," he cajoled the cashier. The manager returned. "Why do you want to buy all this cereal?" Now the first customer hesitated. The house painter turned to me with a look of concern on his face. "This doesn't seem right, does it?" "No, it doesn't," I agreed. "Do you think this is racism?" he asked me. "I don't know," I answered honestly, feeling subtly traitorous in my hesitation to myself and all people of color who've been on the receiving end of assumptions of theft and jumping the line. "You want to resell these, don't you? These are for families, not for resale. I'm sorry." The manager pointed to the leaflet. "There's a limit of 4 per customer." The customer left his cart and the line and exited the store. The painter and I were now looking at the manager, and he was on the defensive. "He works at a convenience store one town over," he said. "He's been here before. He buys things on sale, and then they sell them at 2 or 3 times the price." So while there was more to the story than either the customer in front of me or I originally suspected, if we're really to examine the challenges of immigrant families and families of color who run and work for convenience stores and landscaping companies and nursing homes and hospitals and restaurants and motel chains and clothes and house cleaners, the histories of their opportunities and trajectories in the U.S. are dramatic, complicated, and heartbreakingly similar. What stayed with me, though, was the fact that it was a white man, most likely a laborer, who intervened on behalf of the customer in front of him, a person of color and very likely an immigrant, and his turning to the customer behind him, a person of color and a woman, for validation. I left the grocery store reminded that we decide what constitutes fairness together. Of course, our options for participating in the conversation differ widely. It led me to reflect on what leads to the higher tolerance that some people have for conflict, exchange, and mutual responsibility. What kinds of calisthenics would help more people increase their endurance and musculature for doing the hard work of the social? How do we awaken in ourselves the ability to engage in the lifelong conversations that necessarily involve conflict without capitulating to paralyzing fear? And how do we enter into the work together of deciding what is fair and compassionate and good? How do we work out to endure conflict? Conflict need not be filled with accusation and vitriol. It can lead to the kind of exchange where we rethink and the willingness, when standing in line at the store, to question what's happening. Whether we believe in free will or enlightenment, cognitive behavior or psychoanalysis, genetics or culture or the structure of society and its organizations, its literatures, its religions, or we search for meaning in the mathematics and the structure of the universe. Each of these presuppose human ability to move toward self-reflection, individual and collective understanding, and ultimately transformation. For many of us, discovering when we are asleep from the consumption of propaganda and how to awaken and engage ourselves and each other in the lifelong work of conflict and cooperation are among the most interesting questions of life. I'm Sarah Willie-LeBreton, Provost and Dean of the Faculty at Swarthmore College, and a professor of Sociology and Black Studies.